pregnant and already a mother. She moved through the halls of Harvey High with an aura of confidence. Boys stumbled, girls whispered, Rose barely noticed. She had Arthur and Maria, their baby girl, with eyes as big and dark as her own. Life was a dream, spun from gold records and Hollywood parties. Her parents were legends, their love story a whirlwind romance straight out of a movie. Rose was their legacy, a princess born into a world of music and magic. Rose's life wasn't all champagne wishes and caviar dreams. She trained hard, her lithe body a blur on the track. She dreamt of Olympic gold, of pushing her limits further, faster. But even as she sprinted towards the finish line, a shadow lurked, a darkness that whispered in the corners of her seemingly perfect world. It hid in the envious glances of her classmates, their smiles strained, their eyes cold. Life, Rose knew, was a balancing act, light and darkness, joy and sorrow. She embraced it all, her spirit rooted in the ancient traditions of her ancestors. Creole voodoo, her grandmother called it, a legacy passed down through generations. Rose walked with spirits, spoke their language, understood their power. It was her shield, her solace, her secret weapon against the envy that swirled around her like a storm. Little did she know, the storm was about to break, and her world, so carefully crafted, would shatter. The whispers started subtly. In the echoing hallways of Harvey High, envy festered. Rose's classmates, their own dreams dwarfed by her seemingly effortless success, seethed. They saw only the surface, the shimmering facade, and resented her for it. There was Jennifer, the head cheerleader, her smile a brittle mask hiding a heart twisted by jealousy. She craved Rose's speed, her effortless grace on the track. Mark, the star quarterback, whose own athletic prowess paled in comparison to Rose's, seethed with silent frustration. He longed for the attention, the adoration she received so readily. And then there was Susan, the quiet one, her eyes sharp and calculating. She envied Rose's wealth, the privilege that dripped from her designer clothes and the keys to her own condo. Susan, trapped in a life of poverty and neglect, saw Rose as a symbol of everything she could never have. The whispers grew louder, fueled by their shared resentment. They huddled in corners, their words dripping with venom. Plans were hatched, whispers transforming into dangerous murmurs. Rose, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, continued to shine. Her light, so bright, only served to deepen their hatred, pushing them further down the path of darkness. The whispers followed Rose like a bad smell. They clung to her in the locker room, where Jennifer would sneer at her victories. They echoed in the cafeteria, where Mark would make snide remarks about her privileged life. And they haunted her in the library, where Susan's cold stares burned into her back. Rose tried to ignore them, to rise above the pettiness, but the constant barrage of negativity began to chip away at her usually unshakable confidence. She found solace in Arthur's arms, his love a warm embrace against the chill of their envy. She confided in him, her voice trembling with a fear she couldn't quite name. Arthur, his brow furrowed with concern, vowed to protect her. He would be her shield, her knight in shining armor. But even his love, strong and unwavering, couldn't protect Rose from the darkness that was closing in. The whispers had transformed into a deadly chorus, their envy a potent poison that threatened to consume them all. February 28th, 1979, a night like any other in Harvey, Illinois. A biting wind howled outside, but inside Rose's condo, warmth radiated. Baby Maria gurgled softly in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Arthur was away, a rare trip to see his ailing mother. Rose, her track practice cut short by an unexpected downpour, relished the quiet solitude. She swayed gently to the rhythm of her parents' latest record, a bittersweet melody that filled the air with longing and love. A sharp knock on the door shattered the tranquility. Rose, her guard momentarily down, opened it without a second thought. It was Jennifer, her blonde hair plastered to her forehead, her eyes wide and panicked. She stammered something about car trouble, about needing to use the phone. Rose, her heart overflowing with compassion, ushered her inside. She didn't notice the shadows lurking behind Jennifer, the glint of malice in their eyes. Before Rose could even register what was happening, Mark and Susan surged forward. Their faces, normally so familiar, were twisted into grotesque masks of hatred. Mark lunged, his fist connecting with her jaw. Rose cried out. The sound abruptly cut short as Susan slammed a hand over her mouth, stifling her screams. They dragged her into the living room, the scent of gardenias from a nearby vase suddenly overpowering, cloying. Rose struggled against their grip, her fear morphing into a cold, hard rage. She wouldn't be a victim, she would fight back, but it was too late. Mark, his eyes devoid of remorse, pulled out a knife, the blade glinting under the dim light. He plunged it into her chest, a sickening thud that echoed in the sudden silence. Rose's eyes widened, a flicker of betrayal and disbelief in their depths. Then, her body went limp, her lifeblood staining the hardwood floor a gruesome crimson. The scent of gardenias, once sweet and intoxicating, now hung heavy in the air, forever intertwined with the stench of death. Rose had always been different. Even as a child, she possessed a sensitivity, an awareness that set her apart. Her grandmother, a formidable woman with eyes that held ancient wisdom, recognized it instantly. She took Rose under her wing, initiating her into the world of Creole voodoo, a rich tapestry of West African spirituality, Catholicism, and Native American traditions. Rose embraced it wholeheartedly, drawn to its raw power, its ability to connect with the unseen world. She learned the language of herbs and roots, the potent magic held within their fragrant depths. She mastered the art of crafting gree-gree, small charms imbued with protective spirits, and she delved into the mysteries of the lower, the powerful spirits that bridged the gap between the living and the dead. Years of dedicated practice had elevated Rose to a position of respect within the community. Elders sought her counsel, drawn to her wisdom and intuition. She moved with a quiet confidence, her connection to the spirit world a source of strength and solace. But it was her ability to pierce the veil, to communicate with those who had passed on, that truly set her apart. It was a gift, both a blessing and a curse, one that filled her with a profound sense of responsibility. Little did Rose know that her connection to the spirit world would soon be tested in the most unimaginable way. Her murder, a brutal act fueled by envy and rage, had ripped her from the world of the living, but it had not severed her ties to it. Her spirit, tethered to the earth by unfinished business, lingered. She watched in horror as her lifeless body lay on the floor, her blood staining the hardwood a macabre crimson. Rage, raw and consuming, coursed through her. They would pay, they would all pay. Arthur returned home, his heart heavy with worry for his ailing mother, to a scene of unimaginable horror. The silence, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, was deafening. He called out for Rose, his voice echoing through the empty condo. A knot of dread tightened in his stomach as he pushed open the door to the living room. The sight that greeted him sent a wave of nausea crashing over him. Rose, his beautiful Rose, lay sprawled on the floor, her eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling, her once vibrant life drained away. His knees buckled, sending him crashing to the floor. Sobs racked his body as he cradled her lifeless hand in his, the coldness of her skin searing him like fire. Days blurred into weeks. Arthur moved through life in a daze, his grief a suffocating weight. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, haunted by images of Rose's lifeless eyes. He threw himself into caring for Maria, their daughter's laughter the only balm to his wounded soul. One night, as he sat by Maria's crib, her tiny hand clutching his finger, a cold breeze swept through the room. The scent of gardenias, Rose's favourite, filled the air, so strong it was almost suffocating. And then he heard it, a whisper, faint but distinct, coming from Maria. "Mummy says they hurt her," the little girl murmured, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Mummy says they need to pay." Arthur's blood ran cold. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that it was Rose speaking through their daughter. He would find her killers, he vowed, his grief giving way to a burning rage. He would make them suffer as they had made Rose suffer. He had made a pact with the dead, and he would not rest until justice, however cold and unforgiving, was served. The murders sent shockwaves through Harvey. Rose, the golden girl, the track star, the loving mother, was gone. Whispers, this time tinged with fear and suspicion, replaced the envy that had festered before. Jennifer, Mark, and Susan maintained their charade of innocence. They shed crocodile tears at her funeral, their faces pale masks of grief. But beneath the surface, guilt gnawed at their consciences. Jennifer, haunted by the memory of Rose's trusting smile, started seeing her everywhere, in the reflection of the mirror, in the faces of strangers, in the shadows that stretched long and menacing in the night. She couldn't escape the feeling of eyes boring into her back, the sensation of unseen fingers brushing against her skin. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside her window, sending her heart racing in her chest. Mark, once cocky and self-assured, became withdrawn and paranoid. The scent of gardenias, once a pleasant reminder of Rose's athletic prowess on the track field, now filled him with a primal fear. He smelled it everywhere, in his car, in his locker, even in his own home. The aroma was strongest at night, permeating his dreams, transforming them into vivid nightmares where Rose's lifeless eyes stared accusingly at him. He started seeing her face in the faces of the people around him, their expressions morphing into grotesque imitations of her final agonizing moments. Susan, always the quiet one, retreated further into herself. The guilt manifested as a constant gnawing anxiety that gnawed at her insides. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being followed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Rose's lifeless body, her blood staining the hardwood floor a horrifying crimson. Her once sharp mind became clouded with paranoia. Every stranger a potential threat, every unexpected noise a harbinger of her impending doom. The whispers in the dark had begun. Rose, her spirit fueled by vengeance, was slowly tightening her grip on their souls, reminding them that their crime would not go unpunished. The scent of gardenias grew stronger. It clung to Jennifer, Mark, and Susan like a shroud. It followed them everywhere, a constant reminder of their sin. The whispers in the dark evolved. They became voices, soft at first, then growing louder, more insistent. Rose's voice. She spoke of betrayal, of pain, of the cold, unforgiving hand of death. Jennifer, driven to the brink by guilt and terror, sought solace in pills and alcohol. She craved oblivion, a moment's peace from the relentless torment. One night, stumbling home from a party, she saw Rose standing in the middle of the road. Her white dress billowed in the wind, her eyes burned with an eerie green light. Jennifer screamed, her foot slamming down on the accelerator. The last thing she saw before the world went black was Rose's face, contorted in a mask of rage inches from her own. Mark, his athleticism failing him as his paranoia grew, became a recluse. He barricaded himself in his house, convinced that Rose's spirit was coming for him. The smell of gardenias became overpowering, suffocating him. He thrashed in his bed, his screams swallowed by the darkness. One night, driven mad by fear and guilt, he stumbled out of his house, his eyes wide with terror, muttering about forgiveness. He ran into the night, desperate to escape the vengeful spirit that haunted him. He didn't see the oncoming truck, its headlights like the eyes of a predator in the darkness. Susan, her mind teetering on the edge of sanity, became obsessed with atoning for her sin. She visited Rose's grave every day, pleading for forgiveness, offering up her deepest regrets. But Rose's spirit was relentless. Susan's dreams were plagued by visions of Rose's lifeless eyes, her whispers morphing into blood-curdling screams. She couldn't escape the feeling of Rose's presence, the cold touch of her hand on her shoulder, the scent of gardenias filling her lungs, choking her. One day she was found at Rose's grave, her body contorted in an unnatural position, her eyes wide with terror, a single gardenia clutched in her lifeless hand. The whispers, the scent, the fear, it had all driven her mad. Arthur watched from the shadows as the lives of Rose's killers unraveled. He couldn't bring himself to feel pity. They had taken everything from him, and now they were paying the price. He had played his part, feeding their paranoia with subtle hints, planting evidence, ensuring they wouldn't find peace. But it was Rose, her spirit fueled by a mother's love and a thirst for vengeance, who delivered the final blow. He sat by Maria's bedside, watching as his daughter slept peacefully. "Mommy says thank you," Maria mumbled in her sleep, her tiny hand reaching up as if to grasp an invisible presence. Arthur felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, the scent of gardenias, no longer cloying or menacing, but sweet and comforting, washing over him. He knew Rose was at peace. Her killers had paid the ultimate price. Their envy, their cruelty, had consumed them, leaving behind only wreckage and despair. Arthur made a silent vow to Rose. He would raise their daughter with love, surrounding her with the warmth and light that had been so brutally stolen from Rose. He would keep her memory alive, telling Maria stories of her mother's strength, her kindness, her unwavering spirit. The scent of gardenias lingered, a bittersweet reminder of the woman he loved, the woman who, even in death, had ensured that justice was served. Years later, Harvey High stood as a silent sentinel, a stark reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. The whispers of Rose's murder had faded into hushed rumors, the details obscured by time and fear. But the memory of Rose, the golden girl whose light had been extinguished too soon, lived on. Arthur, his hair streaked with silver, stood before her grave, a single gardenia in his hand. Beside him stood Maria, now a young woman, her mother's dark eyes gazing out at the world with a wisdom beyond her years. She had grown up hearing stories of her mother, not of her death, but of her life, her laughter, her love. "Your mother was a force of nature," Arthur said, his voice thick with emotion. "She was loving, kind, and fiercely protective. She may be gone, but her spirit lives on in you, in the memories we hold dear, and in the justice she sought." Maria placed her hand on her father's arm, a silent understanding passing between them. She knew the truth of her mother's death, the darkness that had cut her life short. But she also knew the power of her mother's love, a love that transcended even death. The scent of gardenias hung heavy in the air, a poignant reminder of a life tragically cut short, a spirit's quest for vengeance, and the enduring power of a mother's love. Rose might be gone, but her legacy, like the intoxicating scent of her favorite flower, would linger forever.
The end. My very first book or story by Latasha Long.